Welcome to Invested Souls, the podcast where real estate expertise meets relationship growth.
And we're your hosts, the Flanagans. I'm Brad.
And I'm Jamie. This podcast is your chance to learn from our experiences and follow in our footsteps. Whether you're an entrepreneur, investor, or real estate professional, we've got the insights and strategies to help you elevate your wealth and achieve financial freedom.
But it's not just all about real estate. We believe that thriving in life means nurturing the relationships that matter most.
That's right. We'll be talking about how to balance your personal and professional life so you can create a fulfilling and prosperous future.
So join us on Invested Souls and let's grow together in wealth, relationships, and success.
Ready to elevate your life? Let's get started. Welcome to Invested Souls. Welcome back, everybody. We are on Invested Souls, and we have Jeremy Prunty here, and he's actually a local to our market investor. So I'd love you to introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about what you've done.
Sure. I've been, really about my first house back in 2004, which I still currently own. I had my first formal real estate investing training back in right around 2010. And been doing it full time ever since about 2013 or 14. So just a full-time real estate investor now.
Nice. So you worked full time while you were starting your investment journey before. So a lot of people listening are trying to figure out how to replace their full-time jobs that they don't enjoy going to or are worried about losing with the current economical times and working into getting full-time investing. So I'd love to pick your brain on that.
Sure. I did have a handyman business slash contracting business when I got started in it. So I guess that did help me at least transition into full-time real estate investing, but it also got in my way a little bit too, because, I wanted to spend too much time swinging the hammer as opposed to finding deals, getting them funded, getting them rehab, things of that nature. So, and it just takes starting, at the end of the day. It's a lot of people wait for the right time, perfect time. There's never going to be a right time or perfect time. You just need to make time.
Right.
So.
Yeah, for sure. That is so funny. Everyone is always looking for that perfect opportunity. And you have to really shift your mindset around creating opportunity when you don't necessarily attracting the opportunities, being
Right.
open-minded to them. So what was that journey like? How did you know when you were like, okay, I'm definitely spending more time doing activities that were profit producing before? Because technically when you're doing work on your own properties, it is profit producing when you don't have an alternative, when you're not don't have the experience to source the deals. But what was that transition like?
It was mainly just figuring out the systems and processes to make that transition, to make sure I was clear in my expectations and the scopes of work. And, I create the scope of work for this property is what I expect. That way I didn't have to, I'd still stop at the property once a week or so, just check on the progress. And, I even had to dial down to Mondays is my day to stop by all properties in a rehab, so that, Tuesdays I can approve payments to contractors, get those checks cut. So I pay my contractors weekly, which they love. And then Wednesdays is my marketing day. And then Thursday and Fridays are kind of like my fluff days or fill-in days or whatnot.
To be more reactive.
Taking notes.
Well, and that's what's funny is that by doing what you said, you just need to kind of start or take action, then learn what is all included in what we're doing, so that then you can understand how to best establish some processes, because you can't just hire and scale if you don't know what needs to be done in the first place. So
Right.
Absolutely love that, because we always talk about this competitive advantage and identifying that if you're pursuing really anything, but ultimately the real estate investment piece is our focus. So what's your competitive advantage is kind of a great question to ask ourselves. And I was always on the lending side. I did, of course, see that, you do emphasize that. And it seems that that's something that you've, of course, had to grow into because you were the owner operator. But as you started, I think your competitive advantage was that you were handy and you could reduce your cost. Is that true or?
Yeah, that's true. And I still essentially, to an extent, have that competitive advantage because I've maintained my contractor's license so that I can still even pull permits on my own properties, and that way I'm not subject to the fair, overhead of your general contractor and whatnot. So let me control it. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
Not just a born salesman.
yeah, right.
I've seen a ton of that. And I love that your emphasis was around the legitimacy of the business. It's registered at the Secretary of State. And then you and I share, I did for a little while get into kind of the contractor side of it. I was licensed in mold remediation as well. So it
Oh, yeah.
gave me a flashback. I'm like, ICRC S520, what?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you still mess around with that at all?
I mean, yeah, if I need to, if I buy a house that has, mold or lead or anything like that, they essentially just require somebody to be overseeing it that is certified, and that way I can still have that designation and say, hey, I can handle this, and whereas not many other people are able to do that.
Right.
So,
Well, and those specialty services, man, they charge a premium for it. So being able to avoid that is critical.
yeah.
Mhm. I was gonna ask, so this is another thing that I love talking about is like your first deal. Everyone wants to make a lot of money on their very first deal. They're like, oh, I'm gonna flip a house and make $50,000. And honestly, we talk about it being like tuition. Like,
Right.
so just if you were to share, like, if you could, has every single deal you've ever done like been a slam dunk, made a bunch of money? Or
I wouldn't call it a slam dunk. There's been some pretty good ones where I didn't have to do a whole lot to make a decent amount, like wholesales and whatnot. But no, every single one hasn't been a slam dunk. There's always, I don't really call them. There haven't been any that I've just lost my left arm on.
right.
With that said, it probably helps mitigate the risk and the expenses by having the contractor license, having the ability to buy certain materials at wholesale and whatnot. But there's also been budgets that have been completely blown. And I don't call those failures. I call them learning lessons. I don't think there's really ever a failure because as long as you learn something from it,
Right.
apply it and don't do it again, well, then it's a teaching.
Yeah. It's hard. It's like, and that's a thing is they won't do anything because they're so worried about failing on the first one. And it's like, I really think it's okay because if you fail in the first one, the next 9 you do, you'll have that, you get to use it. You get to use that learning lesson, that tuition forever. And if you didn't learn it, then then you don't get any good out of it.
Right.
So it's hard. It's navigating that as a challenge, and coaching people on just making the move can be challenging.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm more excited about things than my clients.
A good term I remember one of my mentors years back said is too often people get paralysis of analysis. They just get stuck on analyzing the deal and like picking it apart and like, oh, but what if? Like, sure, I mean, there's always going to be what ifs, but you
Right.
just got to still move forward and try it, do it.
Yep. Absolutely.
We can what if, and we won't ever get on the airplane or get in the car or do anything. We can just
right.
be adverse to all the risk. And I just want to point that out because if somebody is listening and they're trying to get those pieces of value or nuggets, it's one, the successful investor sees even we label them failures sometimes, but I work on language all the time, and it's undesirable outcomes and what contributed to the undesirable outcome and how do I make the changes to turn them into more desirable outcomes. And the other was, you focus more on what you stand to lose versus what you stand to gain, and you end up holding yourself back. So often somebody in my space is mortgage, right? Or my primary conversations are around money, and somebody's holding back because of what they envision as their loss as this new interest rate environment, as opposed to what they stand to gain, which is not paying 10% over the asking price, or waiving a lot of the protections like inspections and things in order to just get that property, and then end up with more loss when they were just, their perspective was wrong because they were listening to the media or doing what the masses are doing.
Right. Right. So you just, yeah, I mean, you can sit there and, if you don't move forward, you're just going to have all these, I should have done that. I should have done this, but then eventually you're just going to shit all over yourself. I mean,
Yes.
just, yeah.
That's true. You and Brad both, I noticed you made a mention of like networking and utilizing networking in your business. I do a lot of networking too, but I'm a little bit more introverted, which sounds weird, but
Me too. Yeah.
so how do you feel like the professional networking has contributed positively to your growth in the investing field?
It certainly has, because, you have to continue getting out there, showing your face to just, the more you do that, the more it just kind of reminds people that you do what you do. I mean, there was a property that I just picked up in Papillion. I wholesaled it, but, it was likely because way I bought it was just because social media networking is essentially probably how that kind of reminded of the person that I bought it from. But, that goes in line with networking, that you just got to continuously be out there, be known, be seen, that way people are just like, oh, hey, I've got something. Oh, and the term also comes along. The bigger your net work, the bigger your net worth as well. So, it's very important.
Yeah, it is very, very important. And surrounding yourself with people who like get where you're going and are going to support you and be excited for you, and you can grow from each other.
Right.
Yeah, I think there was a quote in one of your prior interviews or spotlights, and it was something about you can control who you're around.
Oh, you can't. Oh. Well, I actually have a thing in my Google Drive. It's called the mental crockpot. It's like a Word doc that I have like all these sayings on. You can't change the people around you, but you can change the people around you.
Yeah.
You can't change people, but you can
change
people around you.
Yeah. Yes. Where the emphasis is. That is good. It's so true.
Yeah. And because at the end of the day, because another quote, whoever is in your ear is where you'll steer. I tell my boys that all the time. You got to pick your friends wisely. You can't be hanging around people that are making bad decisions, because then eventually they'll make bad decisions too. So,
yep. We're dealing with
guilt by association.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So hard. How old are your kids?
16, 14, 9.
Oh, yeah. So we've got a 15 and a 9-year-old.
Okay. Yeah.
So similar ages, but yeah, it's the friend groups that's tough to navigate.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Well, and like you brought up social media, I mean, it can be a blessing and it can be a curse.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I would say it's got to be nearly impossible to filter today. There's just far too much content put out, and how do you put guardrails and identify it? And then there's the convenience of, hey, I need to be able to get a hold of my kid, and you get that location. So there's like these such challenges, and parental controls are really all that I can attempt to lean on the best I can.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, if they work.
That is true, because it's still technology, and they don't always catch everything, and or they, speaking from experience, they turn them off or manipulate them, and
yeah,
they've got
all kinds of things they can do.
They've got the time to try to figure out how to get the workaround. And
I heard a rumor that if they go, I won't share it, because if kids listen, then they'll know. I'm not going to share it.
That's a good idea.
I'm like, oh my gosh, all the things that they can do. It's like, it's crazy. Yeah. So Another thing that we've been talking about lately is like, how do we inspire our kids to see the value in what we're doing versus growing up and, feeling like the properties that we own are a burden versus a really huge tool to wealth. And is that anything that you've started the conversations there? Because we are also trying to navigate it. So it's like, how do we instill these values in our kids so that they can get excited about what we're building and hopefully take over and continuing it?
Right. Well, I'm in the process of transitioning my single family houses into commercial, and I think that might make it a little easier to show or teach the perceived value, just because it's a little bit less work. But with that said, I do still take them out to houses, like when a tenant moves out or whatnot, and, hey, help me freaking clean this, or tear out this carpet or something like that. I don't know, and help them or have them, actually I had my middle son, while I did it, it's kind of a teaching moment. He wasn't supposed to be up at night or late playing on the computer, and I caught him at still playing at 2 a.m. So I freaking made him spend an hour sweeping one of the flip houses, so so they're good teaching moments still. I mean,
it is, yeah.
But yeah, that's a great question, really. And yeah, I don't have a great answer for that just yet.
Well, maybe I'm like working on a mastermind for that.
Yeah.
Someday we'll have it figured out.
Yeah, we do our best, I think, to tie it to goals, and you've always done a good job, Jamie, like having them come and do work as well. So it's like, then they feel a part of it and don't see it as something that's stealing time away from them. It's something that kind of brings together, which, yeah, I'll never say that I miss doing anything maintenance oriented around the properties, but that was one of the perks when I still took the time to get out there and actually get on site. Nowadays, maybe it's just like we go and look at something with them or prospect for properties, that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. She helped me paint a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. No, and like Chandler, I feel like they've all been over there and participated in that in some capacity. So as long as we do a good job, I believe, as the parents who they want our time, right? Like at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, I think, exactly what we're doing. Yes, some stuff is perceived as more fun than others, but as long as we're not absent and then blaming the absence on the building of this legacy that they just don't yet understand, we can help keep it in a positive light. Like, even if they don't love it, as long as we're not blaming their dissatisfaction on the project, we can avoid them putting it in a negative spotlight.
Well, especially when, I can't speak for everyone, but I can certainly speak for myself in saying that, I mean, one of the biggest reasons I got into real estate investing is for the freedom and for the time. So if you're not realizing that
exactly
time and spending too much time on the business and not enough on your family, then something needs to change. So
yep. Yeah, then you failed. That's the failure part. No, as I think back on the memories that we have, as much as we both I didn't want to be painting either necessarily. And it's just something that had to be done. And in the moment, it's like you either hire it out or we had time at that. We weren't in a position to hire it yet. And now I look back and I'm like, it's kind of cool. We actually can look back at those photos and I love them. And that it was a totally memory created. But yes, in the moment, did either any of us want to be painting a wall? Probably not.
I remember my very first house that I bought in Bellevue, I had to refinish the hardwood floors. And I remember I will never do it ever again because it sucked so bad. I literally took the floor sander and wrote "This sucks" in the hardwood floor and took a picture of it.
Oh my God, that's awesome. You got it out though? It sanded out?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
My luck would be we would go to
made it too deep or something. Right.
That would totally happen. That's we wrote on our own walls one time in permanent marker, our goals. And
Oh, yeah.
we went to move out and painted over it. That's just kept coming
Black
through. We were like,
yeah.
well, we learned that the hard way.
Right.
Like, now when we have tenants right on the walls, I'm like, oh gosh, this is like our karma coming back to us.
Right.
Oh my gosh. So one thing, I'll finish this out. I want to ask you, what's the one book that you would recommend everyone reads, or book that changed your life the most?
I've seen him answer this one before.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's always beneficial to read that one. And yeah, so I still go with that.
All right.
Sounded like you had a library, and I love that too, because like one more just value or concept to adopt. It seems that like you value gaining knowledge. You mentioned training. You mentioned kind of investing in your knowledge. Reading is top of your list, or
reading and seminars, because if you get one nugget from one seminar or one nugget from one book, it's always worth it. And if you're not growing, you're dying. I mean, you have to stay current. You have to stay fresh. You have to stay on top of it, or else it's going to go stagnant, and you'll stop growing.
For sure. No, in order to be an investor, you got to invest in yourself. So love that.
And I think it's super cool that we talk about elevating your sphere of influence. And like we've talked to a few people who are like all writing their own books or recently written their own books. And it's cool that Jeremy brought up that you're in the process of that. And if you want to, I would love to hear just anything like that you've learned, because that's what they say, right? The book ends up becoming for yourself. Like you learn so much in the process. So what has that been like? And
my biggest challenge with the book now is like, where do I decide to make the conclusion of this book? And then where do I decide to make the start of the next book? Like it's been in the process for way too long. So now it's like, it's starting to make sense now. Successful people have multiple books, because gosh, if you just wrote one book, it would take you 10 years, to have everything into one. So you just now have to figure out where the start is, where the end is, and then where the next one is. So
yeah,
go from there. So
that's awesome. Well, congrats on that process. I'll hopefully when it's done, we'll be readers and excited to look forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm coming to get a signed copy. You're too far away.
Right.
So if somebody were listening to this and they were to bring you the perfect property or opportunity, we'll finish it out on name that. How would they get in touch with you?
Social media, or just calling me. And it's pretty easy to just Google my name or company name and be able to reach out to me and get a hold of me. So
perfect. And you said you're phasing out single family, so opportunity wise, probably like more commercial side.
Well, with that said, I'll never turn down a good deal. At the end of the day, just like that one in a billion, I still bought and ended up wholesaling it to somebody. So I'll still buy.
So put them on your list.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. We really appreciate it.
Great to hang with you.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks for tuning in to Invested Souls.
We hope you found our insights valuable and feel inspired to elevate your real estate and relationship goals.
If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. Your feedback means a lot to us.
Follow us on social media for more tips and updates, or visit bradandjamieflanagan.com. And to find out more about our Real Estate Wealth Accelerator, don't hesitate to reach out.
Until next time, keep investing in your future and nurturing your relationships. Thanks for listening to Invested Souls.